The king. King Jonathan Xavier had just walked through a crowd of 200 nobles, stopped directly in front of me, and said the 5 words that shouldn't exist in our world anymore. I think you're my mate. I have worked in this palace for 3 years, been invisible for 25, and now every single person in this gallery was staring at me like I just committed treason. Why? Because soulmate bonds vanished 200 years ago. So either His Majesty had lost his mind, or I just became the biggest threat to the kingdom without even trying. Hey! Welcome to Imagine BL Story. If you're new here, don't forget to hit that subscribe button. It really encourages my work and helps me bring you more stories. Now sit back, relax, and enjoy today's story. My brain couldn't process what just happened. The annual Founders Ball was in full swing in the grand ballroom, but I'd escaped to this quieter space like I always did, hovering at the edges, existing in the background, planning my exit when no one would notice. One moment, I was standing in the corner of the East Gallery, nursing wine I hadn't actually drank, admiring the historical display I'd helped curate. The next moment, he was there, King Jonathan Xavier Devaney, though I'd heard he preferred Nathan. Standing less than 2 feet away, his intense amber eyes locked onto mine like I was the only person in the entire world. Your Majesty, I managed to stammer, immediately dropping into a bow that was probably too deep, too awkward. My hands were shaking. I'm sorry, I didn't hear you approach. What's your name? His voice was rough, almost desperate, and it did something strange to my chest. I straightened slowly, not quite meeting his eyes. Mitchell Beaumont, Your Majesty. I work in the Royal Archives. How did I never see you? There was genuine confusion in his voice, almost pain, and I didn't know how to answer that, because it was a question I'd been asking my entire life about everyone. Not just him. I'm not sure, Your Majesty. I'm usually in the archives. Your Majesty, a smooth voice interrupted, and I nearly sagged with relief as Duke Callahan appeared at the king's elbow. His expression perfectly composed but his eyes sharp. Perhaps we should discuss this matter privately? The gallery is rather public. That's when I realized the gallery had gone completely silent. Every conversation had stopped. Every noble, every diplomat, every person was now staring at us. At me, with expressions ranging from shock to confusion to barely concealed disdain. Oh gods, what just happened? Mitchell Beaumont? The king repeated my name, as if testing how it sounded, and something warm shivered down my spine. I know this sounds unbelievable, but when I looked at you just now, I felt something. Something I've only read about in historical texts. I think you are my mate. My mate. He said I was his mate. But that was impossible. Mate bonds died during the severance 200 years ago. Every child learned about it in school, how one day, the bonds that had connected alphas and omegas for millennia simply stopped. No one knew why. They just vanished and society adapted. So why would the king say that? Why would he claim something that didn't exist anymore? Your Majesty, please, Duke Callahan said more firmly, his hand on the king's arm now. Let's discuss this in your private study, away from... No. The king's voice was absolute, commanding. But then Nathan's expression softened as he looked back at me. I'm sorry. I didn't mean to ambush you like this. I had to know. Know what, Your Majesty? My voice came out barely above a whisper. If you felt it too. Did I feel it? I didn't know what I was supposed to feel. My heart was racing. My hands wouldn't stop shaking, and something was pulling in my chest. Something that wanted me to step closer to him instead of backing away. But was that a mystical bond? Or just the normal reaction to having the most powerful alpha in the kingdom standing inches away, looking at me like I was something precious? I didn't get a chance to answer because suddenly there were more people. Advisors, guards, members of the royal council. All converging on us, all speaking in urgent, hushed tones. I caught fragments. Highly irregular. Must be a mistake. The Kincaid engagement. I was being shuffled backwards by the crowd, away from the king, and part of me was relieved because I couldn't breathe properly when he was that close. But another part of me, a part one didn't recognize, wanted to push back through the crowd, wanted to return to his side. What was wrong with me? Mitchell? A familiar voice cut through my thoughts, and I turned to find Petra, one of my fellow archivists, staring at me with wide eyes. What just happened? Did the king really say what I think he said? I don't know, I whispered honestly. I don't know what just happened, but I could feel every eye in the gallery on me, could feel the weight of their judgment, their curiosity, their disbelief. The whispers were starting already. Did you hear what he said? The king claimed a mate? But bonds don't exist anymore. Who even is that? Some nobody Omega from the archives. This has to be a mistake. I needed to leave. I needed to get out of here before I suffocated under the weight of all this attention. All these eyes finally seeing me for the first time in my life. I set my untouched wine glass down with trembling hands and started moving toward the exit, keeping my head down, trying desperately to become invisible again. But it didn't work anymore. People were watching me, tracking my every movement, and I could feel their stares like physical touches. I made it to the corridor outside the gallery before my legs started to give out, and I leaned against the cool stone wall, trying to remember how to breathe. This wasn't happening. This couldn't be happening. I was Mitchell Beaumont. I was nobody. I was the third child of 5 from House Beaumont, a minor noble family that most people forgot existed. I was the one my family forgot about at dinner. I was the one my friends talked over. I was the invisible archivist who'd been working in this palace for 3 years without anyone noticing I existed. I wasn't supposed to be seen. I definitely wasn't supposed to be claimed as a mate by the king. Sir, are you all right? A palace guard approached me, concern evident on his face. I'm fine, I lied automatically. Just needed some air. Would you like an escort back to your quarters? Yes. Gods, yes. I wanted to hide in my small room and pretend this night never happened. I wanted to bury myself in my books and my research and my comfortable, invisible life. But even as I thought it, I knew that life was gone. Shattered. The moment King Jonathan Xavier looked at me and said those impossible words, everything changed. Mitchell Beaumont. My name echoed down the corridor, and I froze because I knew that voice now. The king was following me. Please wait. I turned slowly to find him striding toward me, his advisors trailing behind with varying expressions of concern and disapproval. He was tall, and having him this close made me fully aware of how much larger he was than me, how his alpha presence filled the entire corridor. Your Majesty, I really think... Duke Callahan started, but Nathan raised a hand and the Duke fell silent. I need to speak with Mitchell. Alone. That's highly irregular, Your Majesty. Perhaps in the morning. Now, Nathan said firmly. Then his expression softened as he looked at me. If you're willing? Was I willing? I should say no. I should ask for time to process whatever just happened. But when I opened my mouth, what came out was, yes, Your Majesty. Because despite everything, despite my fear and confusion and the voice in my head screaming that this was a terrible idea, I needed to understand what just happened. I needed to know if I was going insane, or if the king was, or if somehow, impossibly, mate bonds really were returning to our world. And if they were, why me? Why would fate or destiny or whatever force governed these things choose me, a nobody, to be seen by a king? King Nathan ushered us to his study for privacy. I'd walked past this door hundreds of times in 3 years, delivering documents when requested. But I'd never been inside. Staff like me didn't get invited into the king's personal spaces. It was warm here, intimate. Books lined 2 walls, floor to ceiling. Actual books, worn and loved, not decorative. There was a fireplace crackling softly, 2 comfortable chairs positioned near it, and a massive desk covered in papers and maps. It looked lived in, real. It looked like a place where someone actually lived. Please sit. Nathan gestured to one of the chairs by the fire, and I perched on the edge of it, my back straight, hands folded in my lap. He took the other chair, close enough that I could still smell that cedar and winter scent that was doing strange things to my chest. For a long moment, neither of us spoke. He was studying me with those intense amber eyes, and I was staring at my hands because looking at him directly felt dangerous somehow. I'm sorry, he finally said, and my head snapped up in surprise. For what happened in the gallery. I didn't mean to ambush you like that. Your Majesty, I don't understand what happened. Neither do I. He ran a hand through his dark hair, and for the first time he looked uncertain, vulnerable. I was walking through the gallery, talking with Duke Callahan about agricultural policy, and then I looked up and saw you, and everything just stopped. My heart was pounding. Stopped. It felt like recognition, like I'd been searching for something my entire life and suddenly found it. He leaned forward, his gaze locked on mine. Tell me honestly, did you feel anything? Did I? I replayed the moment. Turning around and seeing the king standing there, that rush of warmth in my chest, the way my Omega instincts responded in a way they never had before. I don't know, I admitted quietly. I felt something, but I don't know if it's what you're talking about. Or just a normal reaction to meeting the king? He nodded slowly like he expected that answer. How long have you worked here, Mitchell? 3 years. I started right after you were crowned, actually. 3 years. And I never saw you. Not once. How is that possible? Because I was invisible. Because I'd spent my entire life perfecting the art of not being noticed. But I didn't say that. Instead, I offered a small shrug. I work in the archives, Your Majesty. It's not exactly high traffic. And when I do attend palace functions, I tend to stay in the background. Why? The question caught me off guard. Why, what, Your Majesty? Why do you stay in the background? Because no one had ever wanted me in the foreground. Because I'd learned young that it was easier to fade away than to constantly fight for space. I'm comfortable there, I said instead. I like my work. I like the quiet. I'm not really built for attention. And now you have it. Because of me. He stood, moving to the window that overlooked the palace gardens. Mitchell, what I felt when I saw you. It matched every description I've ever read about the mate bond. That pull, that recognition, that absolute certainty. But that's impossible. Is it? What if the histories are incomplete? What if bonds didn't die? What if they just went dormant somehow? I thought about all the texts I'd read in the archives. I've never seen any evidence suggesting that. Neither have I. But I also never expected to feel what I felt tonight. He returned to his chair, determination in his eyes. I know this is insane, but would you let me try to understand this? Let me court you properly? My brain short-circuited. Court me? I need to know if this is real. The council has been pressuring me to finalize an engagement with Harry Kincaid. It would be a strong political alliance. But after tonight, after feeling this, I can't. Not until I understand what happened. Harry Kincaid, Omega, son of Duke Kincaid, is beautiful, educated, and perfect for a king. Everything I wasn't. Nathan, I don't think this is a good idea. Why not? Because I was nobody. Because this would end badly. Because when he finally realized he'd made a mistake, I'd be the one left broken. Because I don't feel what you feel, I said instead. And I don't want to waste your time chasing something that isn't there. But you said you felt something. Something isn't enough to turn a kingdom upside down for. He was quiet for a long moment, studying me. You think very little of yourself, don't you? The observation hit too close to home, and I looked away. I'm realistic about who I am. And who are you, Mitchell? The invisible one. The forgotten one. The third child no one remembered. But I couldn't say that, so I just shook my head. Nathan crossed to his desk, pulling out formal stationery. He wrote something quickly, sealed it, and handed it to me. Take tomorrow to think about it. But if you're willing to give this a chance, to help me understand what happened tonight, meet me in the East Garden tomorrow at sunset. No pressure. No expectations. Just conversation. I took the sealed letter with trembling hands. And if I don't come, then I'll respect your decision. I won't force this, Mitchell. Whatever this is, it has to be your choice too. I stood, clutching the letter. I should go. It's late. Let me have someone escort you back to your quarters. The palace will be buzzing with gossip by now. I don't want you walking alone. He was right. By morning, everyone would know what happened in the gallery. Everyone would be talking about the king and the invisible archivist he claimed as his mate. My quiet, comfortable, invisible life was truly gone. As I turned to leave, Nathan's voice stopped me. Mitchell? For what it's worth, I'm glad I finally saw you. I didn't know what to say to that. So I just bowed and slipped out the door, where a guard was waiting to escort me back through the palace corridors. When I finally closed my door behind me, I slid down it and sat on the floor, still clutching Nathan's sealed letter. What just happened to my life? 12 hours ago, I was content in my solitude. Now I was... what? The subject of palace gossip? The king's potential mate? The threat to a political alliance? My phone buzzed, then buzzed again, and again. Messages from my friends. Mitchell, what happened? Is it true? Call me immediately. A message from my mother. Your father and I saw the news alerts. We need to discuss this. Call us in the morning. Even my older brothers, who barely remembered I existed, had sent messages. Everyone saw me now, finally, after 25 years of being overlooked. And I hated it. I opened Nathan's letter with shaking hands. Mitchell, I meant what I said. No pressure. But I hope you'll come tomorrow. I have so many questions, and I suspect you do too. Whatever happens, Thank you for not running away tonight. Nathan. I pressed the letter to my chest and closed my eyes. Tomorrow at sunset. East Garden. Should I go? Should I let the king court me, try to prove something that shouldn't exist? Or should I run? I went to the East Garden at sunset. The decision surprised even me. I'd spent the entire day in my quarters, ignoring all messages. But when the sun started dipping toward the horizon, I found myself walking through the palace corridors toward the garden entrance. Nathan was already there, standing by the fountain, still in his formal clothes but with his jacket discarded and sleeves rolled up. He looked almost normal like this, almost approachable. You came, he said, and the relief in his voice was unmistakable. I have questions. So do I. He gestured to a stone bench beneath a flowering harbor. Sit with me. We sat with careful space between us. The garden was private, enclosed by high walls covered in climbing roses. Tell me about yourself, Nathan said. Beyond the archives, beyond work, there's not much to tell. I doubt that. What do you do when you're not cataloging historical documents? I read, research. Sometimes I walk through the city markets. It sounded boring even to my own ears. I live a quiet life. And you prefer it that way? I thought I did. The admission slipped out. It's easier. Safer. Safer from what? From disappointment. From hoping someone might actually notice me and being proven wrong again and again. It doesn't matter, I said instead. You said you wanted to court me. What does that even mean? He was quiet for a moment, choosing his words carefully. It means I want to know you, spend time with you, see if what I felt in that gallery is real, or if I'm losing my mind. And if it's not real, then at least I'll know. His voice softened. But Mitchell, I need you to understand something. The council is pushing hard for the Kincaid alliance. Duke Callahan has given me 1 month to make a decision. My stomach dropped. 1 month. For weeks. After that, they'll expect an official engagement announcement. He turned to face me fully. I'm not asking you to solve this for me. I'm asking if you'll let me explore what this feeling is before I commit to a political marriage. That's not fair to Harry Kincaid. No, it's not. But it's also not fair to marry him while feeling this pull toward someone else. His hand moved slightly closer to mine on the bench. Is that selfish? Yes. But I understood it anyway. What happens if we do this, and you still don't understand what you felt? What happens to me when you marry Harry? I don't know, he admitted. But I promise I won't let anyone hurt you because of this. I almost laughed. You can't promise that. The moment you claimed me as your mate, you painted a target on my back. Then let me try to protect you. Why? The question burst out of me. Why me, Nathan? You could have anyone. Why risk everything for someone you just noticed yesterday? Because when I looked at you, everything else disappeared. The politics, the pressure, the weight of the crown. None of it mattered. For the first time in 3 years, I felt something other than duty. My breath caught. The way he was looking at me, like I was something precious. No one had ever looked at me like that before. I'm scared, I whispered. So am I. His hand covered mine, and heat shot up my arm. This time I felt it clearly, that pull, that rightness like puzzle pieces clicking together. My Omega instincts hummed with contentment, recognizing his alpha in a way that should be impossible. You feel it now, Nathan breathed. Don't you? I nodded, unable to speak. He lifted my hand slowly, deliberately, giving me time to pull away. When I didn't, he brought it to his face and inhaled deeply at my wrist. The gesture was intimate, instinctual, something from the old texts about scent bonding. Something that shouldn't be possible anymore. My body responded instantly, warmth flooding my chest, my scent glands tingling, every Omega instinct screaming yes. This him. Cedar and winter, I managed. That's what you smell like. And you, his voice roughened. Amber and something sweet, like honey and old books. We sat frozen like that. His lips pressed to my wrist, both of us trembling with the impossibility of it all. This is real, Nathan said finally. Whatever this is, it's real. It can't be. Bonds don't exist. Then what do you call this? I had no answer. The evidence was overwhelming. The pull, the scent recognition, the way my body responded to his proximity. Everything the old texts described about mate bonds. We need to be careful, I said, gently pulling my hand back even though every instinct screamed to move closer. If people find out we're whatever this is, It'll make everything worse. Agreed. We keep this private. Just between us. He stood, offering me his hand. Let me walk you back? The walk back was quiet, our hands brushing occasionally in the narrow servants' corridors. Each touch sent sparks through me. At my door, he paused. Tomorrow? Same time? Yes. Good. He hesitated, then leaned in slowly. For a heart-stopping moment, I thought he might kiss me. Instead, he pressed his lips to my forehead, gentle and reverent. Sleep well, Mitchell. I barely slept at all. For the next 2 weeks, sunset meetings in the East Garden became our routine. We talked about everything. His lonely childhood as heir, my family dynamics, our favorite books, the kingdom's future. And the bond grew stronger. Each touch became electric. Each shared glance felt weighted. I learned things about Nathan no one else knew. How he hummed old folk songs when he thought no one was listening. How his carefully controlled composure cracked when he really laughed. He had a sharp wit that he hid behind the crown, and a kindness that showed in small ways. It wasn't just the bond pulling me toward him anymore. It was him, Nathan, the man beneath the title who made me feel like I mattered. My body recognized his in ways that terrified and thrilled me. I started catching his scent in corridors before I saw him. He admitted he'd walked past my quarters 3 times one night, drawn by my scent. The palace gossip intensified. Nobles whispered when I passed. My family sent increasingly worried letters. But in those garden meetings, none of it mattered. Until the night everything changed. We were in the library, my suggestion wanting to show him something I'd found. The palace was quiet, most staff already gone for the evening. Look at this, I said, spreading an ancient text across the table. It's from 50 years before the severance. This scholar theorized that bonds weren't mystical, they were biological. Pheromone-based. Nathan leaned over my shoulder, close enough that his breath stirred my hair. What does that mean? It means if bonds were biological, something could have suppressed them. Not killed them, suppressed them. You think the severance was deliberate? I don't know. But I turned to explain further and found his face inches from mine. We both froze. Mitchell, he breathed. May I kiss you? Every logical thought evaporated. Yes. His lips met mine softly, questioningly. Then I was kissing him back, my hands fisting in his shirt. He made a sound low in his throat, purely alpha, and suddenly I was pressed against the table, his body covering mine, the kiss turning desperate. The bond roared to life, his pheromones mixing with mine violently. Felt like completion, like a missing piece of my soul finally clicking into place. Every nerve ending sang as his hands wrapped around my waist, and for the first time in my life, I felt utterly, perfectly right. When we finally broke apart, both breathing hard, Nathan pressed his forehead to mine. I feel it, I whispered. The bond. It's real. I know. What do we do now? Before he could answer, the library door burst open. Duke Callahan stood in the doorway, his expression thunderous. Your Majesty, we need to talk. Now. His eyes swept from Nathan to me, taking in our flushed faces, our proximity, the ancient text spread forgotten on the table. His expression remained neutral, but something cold flickered in his gaze. Your Majesty, the Council requires your immediate presence. There's been a development regarding the Kincaid matter. Nathan's jaw tightened. It's nearly midnight, Duke. Nevertheless, this cannot wait. The Duke's gaze flicked to me dismissively. I'm sure Mr. Beaumont can return to his quarters unescorted. Actually, it's fine, I said quickly, stepping away from Nathan. The loss of contact felt physical. I was just leaving anyway. Nathan caught my hand briefly, squeezed it. A silent promise, we'll talk later. Then he was gone, following the Duke into the corridor, and I was alone in the library with the ghost of his touch still burning on my lips. I couldn't stop smiling the entire walk back to my quarters. The next morning brought a formal invitation to a state dinner. Attendance. Mandatory for all palace staff of noble birth. I hadn't attended a state dinner in 2 years. No one had noticed when I stopped going. You have to go, Petra insisted when I tried to decline. Everyone's expecting you now. The king's, his mate. The word hung unspoken between us. The dinner was excruciating. I sat at the lower tables with minor nobility, hyper-aware of Nathan at the head table. He kept glancing my way, small smiles that made my chest warm. But I also noticed the stares, the whispers. Lady Limford leaning to whisper while looking directly at me. Lord Brennan's barely concealed sneer, and Harry Kincaid, seated 2 places from Nathan, beautiful and poised and everything a royal consort should be. I heard he's been sneaking around after dark, someone murmured behind me. Meeting the king in secret. Pathetic, really. Does he truly think it'll last? The council will never approve. Not when there's a perfectly suitable match already arranged. I kept my eyes on my plate, forcing down food that tasted like ash. Nathan found me after dinner, pulling me into an empty corridor. Are you all right? I saw their faces. I'm fine. You're not. He cupped my face, tilting it up. Tell me. They're right, Nathan. This can't last. The council expects you to marry Harry. What are we doing? We're figuring this out. There's nothing to figure out. You're the king. You have duties. And you're my mate. The word, finally spoken aloud, hung between us. That has to count for something. In what world? Bonds don't exist, remember? That's what everyone will say. You're chasing a fantasy, and I'm the convenient excuse. You don't believe that. I didn't, but fear made me cruel. Maybe I should. His expression shuddered. If you want to stop this, tell me now. Did I? Everything logical screamed yes. Better to cut losses now before I fell deeper. But when I opened my mouth, what came out was, I don't want to stop. The tension drained from his shoulders. Thank the gods. He kissed me then, desperate and claiming, and I melted into it despite every warning bell in my head. The following week brought escalation. More state functions where nobles whispered. More pointed comments from Duke Callahan about duty. More pressure from the council on Nathan to finalize the Kincaid engagement. And through it all, Nathan and I kept meeting. Stealing moments in gardens, libraries, and empty corridors. The bond strengthened daily. I could feel him now, even rooms away, could sense his emotions like echoes in my chest. We need to be more careful, I said one evening in the East Garden. Duke Callahan is watching. Let him watch. Nathan pulled me closer, nuzzling into my neck where my scent gland pulsed. I'm tired of hiding you. Nathan. I spoke with the royal historian today, asked about pre-severance bonding customs. Do you know what happens when a bond forms but isn't completed? My breath hitched. What? It becomes painful. Physically painful to be apart. He pulled back to meet my eyes. I feel it already. Don't you? I did. The ache when he left, the relief when he returned. We can't. Not until this is resolved. Not until you're free. What if I'm never free? What if the council forces the Kincaid marriage? Then we end this before it destroys us both. He looked at me like I'd struck him. You could do that? Just walk away. Could I? The bond was screaming no. If I had to. I couldn't. His voice broke slightly. Mitchell, Your Majesty. A guard appeared at the garden entrance. Duke Callahan requests your presence urgently. He says it's about Mr. Beaumont. My blood ran cold. When we reached Duke Callahan's office, the atmosphere was glacial. The Duke sat behind his desk, several council members flanking him. On the desk sat a small vial of clear liquid. What is this? Nathan demanded. Pheromone enhancers, Your Majesty. Highly illegal. Duke Callahan's voice was ice. Found this morning in Mr. Beaumont's quarters during a routine inspection. The room tilted. That's impossible. I've never. The evidence speaks for itself. The Duke's gaze was sympathetic. False. I understand this is difficult, Your Majesty, but it appears Mr. Beaumont has been chemically manipulating your instincts. There is no bond. Only artificial attraction. That's a lie, Nathan snarled. Is it? Think clearly, Your Majesty. How else would you explain suddenly feeling a bond that hasn't existed for 2 centuries? You've been deceived. And for the good of the kingdom, Mr. Beaumont must be removed from the palace pending investigation. No, this couldn't be happening. Nathan looked at me, conflict warring in his expression. Mitchell, I didn't do this, I said desperately. Nathan, please, you have to believe me. Of course you deny it, Duke Callahan said smoothly. But the facts are clear. Get out, Nathan said suddenly. Everyone out. Now, except Mitchell. The room emptied slowly, Duke Callahan's expression promising this wasn't over. When the door closed, Nathan turned to me with eyes that held too many questions. Wow, you've made it this far. If you're enjoying the story and still haven't subscribed, please take a second to do so. It means a lot. Also, drop a comment and let us know where you're listening from. All right, let's get back to the story. Tell me the truth. I am telling the truth. I've never used pheromone enhancers. I've never even seen them before tonight. My voice cracked. Nathan, please. You know me. Do I? He ran a hand through his hair. We've known each other barely a month, Mitchell. 4 weeks against Duke Callahan's 30 years of service. Against physical evidence found in your quarters. Each word felt like a blade. You don't believe me. I want to. Gods, I want to. He moved to the window, putting distance between us. But what if he's right? What if this is all artificial? The bond in my chest writhed in pain. You felt it. In that gallery, in the garden, in the library, you felt the bond snap into place. That wasn't chemicals, Nathan. That was us. Was it? Or have I been so desperate for connection that I convinced myself? Stop. I stood, forcing steadiness into my voice. You're right. We barely know each other. And clearly, that's not enough for you to trust me over your counsel. I'll make this easy for you. I'll leave. Mitchell. No, this is better. You can marry Harry Kincaid like everyone expects. The kingdom gets its political alliance. And I go back to where I belong. That's not what I want. Then what do you want, Your Majesty? The question exploded out of me. Because I can't do this, waiting for you to decide if I'm real or manipulation. If this bond is worth fighting for, or just a convenient delusion. Silence stretched between us, heavy and suffocating. I need time, Nathan said finally, to think, to investigate this properly. Time. He needed time to decide if I was telling the truth. Fine. Take all the time you need, Your Majesty. I didn't wait for his response. By morning, my decision was made. I submitted my resignation, packed my few belongings, and left the palace before noon. House Beaumont sat on the outskirts of the capital, a modest estate that suddenly felt like a prison. My youngest sibling opened the door, eyes widening. Mitchell's home! They called over their shoulder, voice filled with an excitement I'd never heard directed at me before. Suddenly everyone appeared, all of them staring at me. The king's mate, my oldest brother said, smirking. Back from the palace already? What happened? Couldn't handle the pressure. Leave him alone, my mother said. But there was something in her voice, curiosity, maybe eagerness, that made my skin crawl. I just need a room for a while, until I figure things out. Of course. My father clapped me on the shoulder, the first time I could remember him touching me in years. Your room is ready. Dinner that night was torture. They'd actually set a place for me at the table. Not at the end where I used to sit, forgotten but closer to the center. Everyone kept looking at me, asking questions, suddenly interested in my life. So what's the king really like? My youngest sibling asked eagerly. Is it true you've been secretly courting for weeks? The news says you're going to be royal consort, my mother said, something like pride in her voice. Imagine our Mitchell. Stop. The word came out sharper than intended. Everyone went silent. Just stop. Mitchell, we're only what? Suddenly remembering I exist. I looked around the table at their shocked faces. I've lived in this house for 23 years. I've sat at this table for countless dinners where you talked over me, around me, through me like I wasn't even there. And now you're interested? Because the king proclaimed me his mate. That's not fair, my father said. You've always forgotten me. Every accomplishment, every moment of my life. I was invisible to all of you. And the only reason you see me now is because someone important finally did. Mitchell, please. My mother reached for me. We didn't realize. Well, it doesn't matter anyway. The king was mistaken. There is no bond. I'm nobody just like always. So you can all go back to forgetting I. Pain suddenly exploded in my chest. Sharp, lacerating, like something vital was being ripped out of me. I gasped, doubling over, one hand clutching at my shirt. Mitchell! Someone grabbed my arm. But I couldn't breathe, couldn't think. The pain intensified, spreading from my chest through every nerve ending. My vision blurred. I heard screaming, realized distantly it was me. Then everything went black. I woke to my mother sitting beside me, dozing. The room was dim, curtains drawn. My entire body ached like I'd been beaten. Mom! My voice came out as a croak. She jolted awake. Mitchell! Oh, thank the gods. She pressed a hand to my forehead. How do you feel? Like I'm dying. The pain in my chest had dulled to a constant, throbbing ache. What happened? You collapsed at dinner. Started convulsing, screaming. We called doctors. They couldn't find anything physically wrong. But you've been in and out of consciousness for 3 days. 3 days. I'd lost 3 days. I need my books. From my bag. Please. She looked confused but retrieved my bag. I dug through it with shaking hands until I found my notebook, research notes about pre-severance texts. I read while she watched, pieces clicking into place. Bond withdrawal. That's what this was. The old texts described it. The physical agony of separation when a bond forms but remains incomplete. Some omegas died from it if separated from their alpha for too long. Which meant it was real. The bond was real. Not manipulation. Not chemicals. Real. Mitchell. My mother's voice was soft. What is it? I need to be alone. Please. The moment the door closed, I broke. Sobs tore from my chest. Pain and grief and rage all tangled together. The bond was real and Nathan had doubted me. Had chosen to believe I would manipulate him rather than trust what we both felt. But worse, the withdrawal meant I needed him. My body was literally dying without him. I cried until I had nothing left, then lay staring at the ceiling as realization solidified. If the bond was real, then the severance couldn't have been natural. Someone had caused it. Someone who had everything to gain from bonds disappearing. I needed proof. Took 2 more days before I could stand without collapsing. The withdrawal symptoms didn't stop, but I learned to function through them. On the 6th day, I dragged myself to the small public library in town. The librarian barely glanced at me as I headed straight for the historical archives section. Hours later, I finally found something. An obscure text, barely legible, written by a scholar 50 years before the severance. My hands shook as I read. The bond is not mystical but biological. A pheromone-based recognition system designed to ensure genetic compatibility. However, recent experiments suggest this system can be suppressed through targeted chemical intervention at the bloodline level. I read faster, heart pounding. The great houses have commissioned research into bond suppression, fearing the destabilizing effect of uncontrolled mate bonds on political alliances. Should they succeed, the implications for future generations. The text ended abruptly, as if deliberately destroyed. The implication was clear. The severance wasn't natural. It was engineered. The powerful houses had deliberately suppressed mate bonds to maintain control through arranged marriages. And if bonds were suppressed artificially, they could return the same way. I grabbed my phone and called Nathan. Voicemail. I tried again. Same result. Duke Callahan was intercepting my calls. My phone buzzed. Unknown number. Stop digging. Leave the capital. This is your only warning. Fear shot through me. Someone was watching. I looked around the library. A few scholars, an elderly woman, a young student. Nothing suspicious. But the message was clear. I'd stumbled onto something dangerous. Something people had killed to keep hidden for 200 years. And Nathan was surrounded by those same people. I had to get back to the palace. Had to warn him. Getting into the palace was impossible. The guard at the staff entrance didn't recognize me, or pretended not to. Mr. Beaumont is no longer employed here. I can't let you in. This is urgent. Please, just send word to His Majesty. His Majesty is in council meetings all day. No visitors. I tried every entrance. Duke Callahan had locked me out completely. My phone buzzed. Another message. Last warning. Leave the capital. I deleted it and called Nathan again. Straight to voicemail. Fine. If I couldn't reach him directly, I'd go through someone else. I found Petra at a cafe near the palace. She startled when I slid into the chair across from her. Mitchell. Gods, you look terrible. I need your help. I need you to get a message to the king. She shifted uncomfortably. After what happened? I was framed, Petra. The pheromone enhancers were planted. And I have proof that the severance wasn't natural. Someone engineered it, and I think Duke Callahan's family was involved. That's insane. Is it? Bonds threatened political marriages, power structures. What if the most powerful families decided to eliminate that threat permanently? She stared at me. Even if that's true, why would the Duke frame you now? Because bonds are returning. Nathan and our bond is real. And if it's real, others will follow. The entire system crumbles. Petra was quiet for a long moment. You really believe this? I know this. Please, Petra. Just give him this. I slid a folded paper across the table. Everything I'd found. Tell him to read the scholar's notes from 1823. Tell him to check his family archives for references to Project Severance. She took the paper reluctantly. If I get caught, you won't. Just leave it in the archives where he'll find it. He hasn't visited the archives since you left. The words hit harder than expected. Then find another way, please. She nodded slowly. 3 days passed with no response. The withdrawal symptoms worsened. I could barely keep food down. Sleep was impossible. My mother wanted to call doctors again, but I refused. No doctor could fix this. On the 4th day, my youngest sibling burst into my room. Mitchell, you need to see this. They shoved their phone in my face. A news alert. Royal engagement announced. King Tio wed Lord Harry Kincaid. The room tilted. When? The official announcement is tonight. There's going to be a ball to celebrate. I took the phone with numb hands, reading the full article. The wedding was scheduled for 3 weeks from now. Duke Callahan was quoted extensively about the excellent match. No mention of me, no mention of bonds. Like the past month had never happened. He'd made his choice. The pain that lanced through my chest had nothing to do with bond withdrawal. That night, I stood outside the palace gates, staring up at the lit windows. Somewhere inside, Nathan was celebrating his engagement to someone else. Without me. You shouldn't be here. A guard approached, expression sympathetic. Go home, kid, before someone reports you for trespassing. He was right. There was nothing for me here. I turned to leave and came face to face with Duke Callahan. Mr. Beaumont, how persistent you are. I thought my warnings were clear. What did you do? What did you tell him? Only the truth, that you're a social climber who used illegal substances to manipulate our king. And now His Majesty has made the sensible choice. You're lying. You planted that evidence because you know the bond is real. Bonds don't exist, Mr. Beaumont. They're fairy tales. But even if they did, do you truly believe a king would choose a nobody like you over his kingdom's needs? You were a distraction. Nothing more. Each word was a calculated strike. He felt it. He knows it's real. Does he? Because His Majesty is inside celebrating his engagement to a suitable match while you're out here, alone, exactly where you belong. The Duke's voice dropped to a whisper. Leave the capital tonight, because if you continue this foolish crusade, I'll ensure you're charged with attempted manipulation of the crown. 20 years in prison. You can't. I can do whatever is necessary to protect this kingdom. He signaled to the guards. Escort Mr. Beaumont off the premises. If he returns, arrest him. I was grabbed by both arms and physically removed. I made it 3 blocks before collapsing in an alley. The withdrawal was killing me. Slowly, agonizingly. I could feel my body shutting down, the bond shredding itself in my chest. This was it, then. This was how it ended. My phone buzzed weakly. I almost ignored it, but something made me check. Petra, I left your message. He found it. Mitchell, he's looking for you. He knows. Another message. But Callahan's locked down the palace. He can't get out. And they're pushing the wedding forward. 2 days from now instead of 3 weeks. Something's wrong. 2 days. They were forcing Nathan to marry Harry in 2 days. I tried to stand and my legs buckled. The world spun, but I was too weak and lost consciousness. I woke up in what looked like an infirmary. For a disorienting moment, I thought I dreamed everything. Then I tried to sit up and agony laced through my chest. And I remembered. Easy. A hand pressed gently on my shoulder. I turned to find Nathan sitting beside the bed, and the relief that flooded through me was so intense I nearly sobbed. You're here, I whispered. Of course I'm here. His voice was rough, strained. Dark circles shadowed his eyes. Gods, Mitchell, when they found you collapsed in that alley. His hand cupped my face. I thought I'd lost you. The engagement. Harry. I saw the announcement. A lie. Duke Callahan released that statement without my authorization. His jaw tightened. I'll explain everything. But first, the doctor said bond withdrawal. That's what happens when a bond forms but isn't completed and the pair separates. Pain flashed across his face. I'm so sorry. I should have trusted you. You did what you thought was right. I was wrong. He moved closer, and suddenly I could breathe easier, the constant ache dulling just from his proximity. Petra delivered your message. I read the text you referenced, searched my family's private archives. Mitchell, you were right. The severance was engineered. My own ancestors were part of it, Project Severance. A coordinated effort by the great houses to suppress mate bonds permanently. Duke Callahan's family? They led it. The Callahans developed the chemical compounds that altered bloodlines at the genetic level. And when he realized our bond was real, that the suppression was breaking down, he panicked. Nathan's eyes blazed. He forgot who he was dealing with. I'm not some puppet to be manipulated. I'm the king. The shift in his presence was palpable. The alpha authority I'd only glimpsed before now fully on display. This wasn't Nathan, the lonely man in the garden. This was King Jonathan Xavier Devaney, and he was furious. What did you do? I had the Royal Guard arrest Duke Callahan on charges of conspiracy against the crown, falsifying evidence, manipulating royal announcements, and, his voice dropped, deadly quiet, attempting to poison the king's mate. My breath caught. Poison. The withdrawal symptoms. He knew they'd kill you eventually. He tried to murder you, Mitchell. Where is he now? In the palace dungeons. He'll stay there until his trial. Nathan's expression softened slightly. But first, I need to fix what I broke. I need to complete our bond before the withdrawal does permanent damage. Heat flooded through me despite my weakness. Nathan, I know you're angry. I know I failed you. But I'm here now. And I'm not letting anyone take you from me again. Not the council, not tradition, not 200 years of engineered lies. He pressed his forehead to mine. You're mine. The possessive alpha growl in his voice made my Omega instincts sing. I'm yours. Then let me prove it. Let me show the entire kingdom who you are to me. He pulled back to meet my eyes. Marry me, Mitchell. Not in 3 weeks. Now, today. The council will never approve. I don't need their approval. I've spent the last 3 days consolidating power. The Royal Guard answers to me directly now. I've replaced 3 council members with younger nobles who support bond rights. And I've called an emergency session of Parliament for tonight. Tonight, I'm going to tell them everything. The truth about the severance, about how their ancestors engineered the suppression to maintain political control. And then I'm going to introduce them to my mate. The first bonded pair in 200 years. Nathan, you're risking everything. I'm risking nothing. You are not a risk, Mitchell. You're my mate, and I will burn down every tradition, every law, every political alliance that stands between us. He cupped my face in both hands. Do you believe me? Looking into his eyes, seeing the absolute certainty there, feeling the bond humming strongly now that we were close again. I did. Yes. Good. He kissed me softly. Now rest. You need to regain your strength. Because tonight, you're going to stand beside me in front of Parliament and every noble house in the kingdom. The invisible archivist? No. His smile was fierce. The king's mate. The one who uncovered a 200-year conspiracy. The man who's going to help me change everything. Instead of leaving, Nathan kicked off his shoes and slid into the narrow infirmary bed beside me. Nathan, what are you? Shoo. He pulled me against his chest. You need this. We both do. The moment our bodies aligned, something shifted. His scent, that cedar and winter, intensified, wrapping around me like a physical force. Alpha pheromones, strong and deliberate. My Omega instincts responded immediately, that constant ache in my chest finally easing. The withdrawal symptoms began to recede. That's it. He murmured against my hair. Let the bond settle. I felt it happening, strength returning, the fever breaking, my racing heart slowing to match his steady rhythm. The bond wasn't complete yet, but this closeness was enough to stabilize me. Sleep, Mitchell. I've got you. For the first time in a week, I slept without pain. I woke to sunlight streaming through windows and the quiet bustle of attendance. Nathan was gone, but a note lay on the pillow, getting everything ready. Trust me, Mr. Beaumont. A woman in formal palace livery approached. His Majesty has requested we prepare you for this evening's parliamentary session. I was led to a suite I'd never seen before, far from the staff quarters, clearly meant for someone of importance. The attendants were efficient and kind, helping me bathe, insisting I eat while they worked. Then came the clothes, not simple formal wear. These were garments of state, deep blue silk with silver embroidery, the colors of House Devaney. His Majesty's orders, the head attendant explained. He wants everyone to know exactly who you are. By the time they finished, I barely recognized myself in the mirror. I looked like I belonged, like I mattered, like someone worthy of standing beside a king. Nathan found me in the suite an hour before the parliamentary session. Perfect, he breathed, taking in my appearance. Then he was kissing me, deep and claiming, "Are you sure about this?" I asked when we broke apart. "Once we do this, there's no going back." "I've never been more sure of anything." He took my hand. "But I need you to understand what you're walking into. Parliament will resist. The old noble houses will fight. This won't be easy." "I know. And you're still willing?" I thought about the past month, the fear, the pain, the constant doubt. Then I thought about Nathan, about the bond humming contentedly between us, about the possibility of changing an entire system built on lies. "Yes." His smile was brilliant. "Then let's go change the world." The parliamentary chamber was packed. Every seat filled with nobles, council members, and representatives. The press lined the back walls, cameras ready. Nathan led me to the front, and the room erupted in whispers. I felt every eye on us, heard the speculation, the disapproval, the shock. But Nathan's hand was firm in mine, his alpha presence commanding and absolute. "Order," the speaker called, and gradually the room quieted. Nathan stepped forward, still holding my hand. "Members of Parliament, noble houses of Arinder, I've called you here today to reveal a truth that's been hidden for 2 centuries. He presented everything methodically, the historical documents, the genetic research, the proof of Project Severance. He detailed how the great houses had conspired to suppress mate bonds, how they'd built an entire social system on that lie. The chamber erupted in chaos. Denials, accusations, demands for proof. But Nathan stood firm, his voice cutting through the noise with pure alpha authority. "I am your king, and I'm telling you that mate bonds never died. They were murdered. By our ancestors. For power." He turned to look at me, and his expression softened. "And now they're returning. The suppression is breaking down." He pulled me forward, and I forced myself to stand tall. "This is Mitchell Beaumont, my mate, the first bonded pair in 200 years. And Duke Callahan tried to destroy him, tried to destroy us because he knew what our bond represents. The end of arranged marriages. The end of political alliances built on forced unions. This is absurd." Lord Brennan stood, face red. "Bonds are fairy tales. This is clearly manipulation. Then explain the withdrawal symptoms. Explain why Mitchell nearly died when we were separated. Explain the historical documents from your own family archives." Silence fell. "You can't. Because the truth is undeniable. Bonds are real. They're returning. And you have a choice. Accept this new reality, or cling to a system built on lies." The speaker cleared his throat. "Your Majesty, even if what you say is true, there are laws regarding royal marriages. Not for mate bonds." Nathan pulled out an ancient text. "Royal Marriage Act of 1653, Section 4. Should the sovereign form a true mate bond, such union supersedes all political considerations and requires no external approval." This law was never repealed. Murmurs rippled through the chamber. "Furthermore, I'm proposing the Bonded Pairs Protection Act. Any verified mate bond will be legally protected, regardless of social class or political convenience." "And if Parliament refuses?" someone called out. Nathan's smile was sharp. "Then I'll dissolve Parliament and call for new elections. I'm prepared to do whatever is necessary to protect my mate. The question is, are you prepared to stand against your king?" The threat hung in the air, unmistakable. Slowly, members of Parliament began standing. First one, then another, then dozens. Not all of them. Some old houses refused, their faces twisted with anger. But enough. More than enough. The speaker banged his gavel. "Motion to recognize the King's mate bond and approve the Bonded Pairs Protection Act. All in favor." A forest of hands rose. Motion passes. The chamber exploded, some in celebration, others in protest. But it was done. Official. Legal. Nathan turned to me, pulled me close, and kissed me in front of everyone, claiming me publicly, undeniably, for the entire kingdom to see. When we broke apart, he whispered against my lips, "You're mine. Officially, legally, completely mine. And you're mine. Always." The aftermath was chaos. Reporters shouting questions, nobles demanding audiences, Parliament dissolving into heated debates. But Nathan kept me close, his hand never leaving mine as we navigated through it all. The king and his mate, the first bonded pair, the catalyst for everything changing. Duke Callahan's arrest made headlines. His family lost their council seat. Other families involved in Project Severance faced investigations. And across the kingdom, reports started coming in. Other people feeling that pull, that recognition. Not many yet, but enough to prove Nathan right. The bonds were returning. 3 days later, in a private ceremony in the palace chapel, we completed our bond. No political alliances, no strategic considerations. Just Nathan and me, and a connection that transcended everything. When his teeth sank into my bonding gland, when I marked him in return, the bond snapped fully into place. Golden and unbreakable and absolutely right. We were whole. 6 months later, I stood in the East Garden where everything had begun, watching the sunset paint the sky in shades of gold and rose. There you are. Nathan's arms wrapped around me from behind, pulling me against his chest. I've been looking for you. I leaned into him, breathing in that cedar winter scent that would always mean home. Just thinking about how much has changed. His lips brushed my bonding mark. Healed now, but still sensitive, and I shivered. Good changes, I hope. Mostly. Parliament approved 3 more bonded pair protections today. The Kincaid family publicly apologized for their role in Project Severance. And I got another letter from a newly bonded pair thanking us. See, you're changing the world. Just like I said you would. We're changing it together. Together. He agreed. Then his expression shifted, became heated. Speaking of together, we have the evening free. No state dinners, no council meetings. Nathan. And I've been thinking about you all day. His hands slid down to my hips, pulling me closer. About last night. About the sounds you made when We're in the garden. I protested weakly, even as heat pooled low in my stomach. A private garden, where no one can see us. His mouth found my throat, teeth grazing my bonding mark. Say yes, Mitchell. How could I say anything else? Yes. He had me pressed against the arbor in seconds, his mouth claiming mine in a kiss that was pure possession. I melted into it, into him, my Omega instincts singing with contentment. His hands roamed possessively, and I arched into his touch, wanting more. Your Majesty? A guard's voice called from the garden entrance. The Queen Mother has arrived for dinner. Nathan groaned against my neck. Tell her we'll be there in 20 minutes. She says it's urgent, Your Majesty. Everything with Mother is urgent. But he pulled back reluctantly, adjusting his clothes. Tonight, I'm keeping you in our bed all night. I'll hold you to that. Dinner with Nathan's mother had become a weekly tradition. She'd been traveling when Nathan and I bonded, and her return had been interesting. Mitchell, darling, you look well, she said warmly, embracing me. She'd accepted our bond immediately, thrilled that her son had found genuine connection. How's the new education initiative? Growing. We've established bonded pair counseling centers in 5 major cities now. It was my project, using my research to help newly bonded pairs navigate their connections. The demand is overwhelming. Because you gave them hope. Both of you did. We settled into dinner, the conversation flowing easily. Nathan's mother asked about my family, and I hesitated. They're adjusting, I said carefully. The truth was more complicated. My parents had reached out after the parliamentary announcement, suddenly eager to reconnect. My older brothers sent awkward apologies. My younger siblings wanted to visit the palace constantly. I'd met with them twice, let them apologize, listened to their excuses. But I hadn't forgiven them. Not yet. Maybe not ever. They're trying, Nathan said quietly, reading my expression. That's something. It's too late for trying. They had 25 years to see me. They didn't want to until I was valuable. Nathan's hand found mine under the table, squeezed gently. Some family is chosen, not given, his mother said softly. You have a home here, Mitchell. Always. The knot in my chest loosened slightly. Thank you. Later, in our private chambers, Nathan made good on his promise. He undressed me slowly, reverently, his hands and mouth worshipping every inch of exposed skin. So beautiful. My perfect Omega. Nathan, please. Please what? His teeth grazed my bonding mark and I gasped. Tell me what you need. You. Always you. He laid me on our bed, covering my body with his, and the bond between us hummed with perfect contentment. This was right. This was home. Afterward, we lay tangled together, my head on his chest, listening to his heartbeat. And grateful for my life now where I had Nathan, had the family I'd chosen in the palace staff who'd welcomed me, had a purpose that fulfilled me. Every bonded pair I helped, every counseling center I opened, Every time I stood beside Nathan at state functions, I was proving that even the invisible ones mattered. That love, real love, the kind that sees you completely, could change everything. Thank you for listening. If you enjoyed the story, tell us your thoughts in the comments. We'd love to hear from you. And don't forget to subscribe and click the notification bell so you never miss an upload. Until next time, keep daydreaming in BL.